actually, that brings me to just the terminology around these things, right? I still get confused. I've talked to people about CBD in the past, but I still get confused. It's like there's CBD, there's hemp, which is like full spectrum hemp, and then there's CBD isolate, and then there's THC, and then there's cannabis itself, which is like the whole plant. So like, what are all these terms?
All the terms? That's a good question. So all of it derives from the plant species cannabis. So there's marijuana, there's industrial hemp, which industrial hemp is cannabis sativa L is the full name for it. But basically they're all forms of the cannabis plant. So what the government has done, and I mean, think about it, like depending on where it's grown at, depending on the genetics of the plant, every plant that's grown is different. They have a different set of terpenes. They have a different set of cannabinoid profiles. They have a different genetic makeup like in the plant.
Of course.
And that's probably why, hear people of like, you heard the term sativa, indica, hybrid. And those are basically all different forms of like the terpenes specifically, but of, they kind of give all specific kinds of experiences that are unique. So the actual, we'll go back to the cannabis. So the government has basically came in and said that anything that's grown in the cannabis plant that has under 0.3% by dry weight. So dry weight's meaning that it's flower. So think of the flower, if you've seen a cannabis flower before, then it's considered industrial hemp. Anything above that is considered marijuana, and that's where it goes state by state for legalities. But under the new Farm Bill from 2018, that's where they kind of officially classified it as, under 0.3% THC by dry weight is hemp. Anything above that is marijuana, which needs to go state by state of how the state's going to handle it.
Okay. So CBD itself, what is this?
So when they're grown under 0.3% THC, what people have done in plant genetics and cannabis genetics, which has gone crazy of what they can do now, different strands of different cannabinoids and all that kind of stuff. It's really starting to progress, but they made strands that are higher in CBD that will yield, like when you plant them, higher in CBD than they are in THC. And so your typical CBD ranges in like a flower plant is going to be like 10 to 15% is what I see most. Some go a little higher, some go a little lower. And this THC, again, is 0.3%. And to put that in comparison, when you go to like a dispensary, you're looking probably at most strands that are THC are going to be, anywhere from 20% to 30%. So they're quite a bit stronger, from 20 to 30% found in the flower to 0.3% or under.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, it's like a microdose, I would say. And that's one thing about hemp is it's pretty much when you grow the plant as well as when you extract it and make products from it, as long as you're not removing the THC, which we can get into a little bit later, you're basically microdosing THC.
Okay.
Which was funny because we went back to my story. When I first started our company and moved up to Colorado, I was selling a lot. It hadn't been really heard of in Oklahoma.
Okay.
There was there was a little bit of people doing it, but not very much. And so it was just very brand new. And so like I said, I grew up in the church and was conservative household, and my mom played piano in the church. My dad was a deacon. And so it was funny because when we moved up here, a lot of our first customers were people in the church. So my mom would bring like 20, 30 bottles of CBD that she had inside of her bag and go to the church because no one wanted to buy it online. They didn't trust it. They didn't know, like, more so they were just didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
Like that. So she would bring like 30 bottles of CBD into the church
Whoa.
and sell them like by the bottle. And people would like gobble them up because it really is an amazing plant. It helps a lot. And what's funny about that is, like, growing up as a devil's lettuce and nothing comes from marijuana.
Sure.
A lot of those same people were microdosing THC. And at the time probably didn't even understand that, in the hemp plant and full spectrum, it has THC.
Yeah.
The thing they demonized their whole life was something that was really seeing huge benefits off of.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in the full spectrum plant. I feel like THC, even in the small amounts, makes a huge difference. So CBD and THC play on different cannabinoid receptors inside the body. THC plays on the CB1 receptor, where CBD plays on the CB2 receptor. And what that means, and they antagonize each other. So quick tip too, if you ever find yourself maybe going to a dispensary and trying an edible, or you get too high, actually taking CBD is going to help you calm down and kind of give you a level head. So they antagonize each other on the receptors.
Yeah.
So quick note, in case
I had
finds
that
himself too high,
Yeah.
take some CBD.
I could have used that information. Instead, I just sat there and pondered the universe for 4 hours
on the couch without moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, but they actually antagonize each other, or different receptors, and so they're definitely play different roles within the body. So those are the two receptors that we in our endocannabinoid system that CBD and THC interact with, and then there are all the other cannabinoids basically play on one or two of those receptors. CB1 is linked to a lot of things with nervous system, so anxiety, depression, which. Not saying by any means that these are cures for that stuff,
right.
At all. Just want to put that out there. But overall, the endocannabinoid system, and the CB1 receptors specifically help play on the nervous system, and basically can you kind of bring down the nerves a little bit, put your body at a homeostasis. And what's funny about that, and what's weird about that, is THC plays on that. Where when you talk to some people that have tried THC or tried too much, they're like, I got the opposite effect of calming down. Like I was anxious, I was like paranoid, all these different things. And so that's where everybody's body is so unique. And little bits, what I found, like the microdoses that are usually found in full spectrum hemp products, are usually the perfect range to where it's not going to like push someone over that edge. Because, you know, everyone's edge is different, because there's some people out there that can take large amounts of THC and it's not affecting them. So there's definitely that out there. But I think for the most people, what I've seen, especially people that aren't experienced with the plant, hasn't used it as much, the low doses of THC is probably is the best. It helps you more with sleeping. It helps more with overall the plant making or working better, and kind of helps calm down, you know, nerves and things like that. The CBD, it plays more on the CB2 receptors, which is more connected to your immune system.
Okay.
So that's why CBD and a lot of the cannabinoids that affect those CB2 receptors have a large role in like maintaining a healthy, functioning immune system. So when that's in order and in balance, then so is your immune system, and it tends to take care of things. That's why when you hear CBD good for everything, I hear all these stories and why is it so popular. And I think that's the reason, because it's playing at your, you know, your body's one system, and it's playing to kind of coordinate and help the entire system, basically. And in our endocannabinoid system, we have receptor sites found all over our body. So in almost every single cell, we have endocannabinoid receptor sites. And so they largely sometimes play a role in the cell homeostasis, which is basically a balanced state, is what I would say. So that's one of the reasons, like when they're at balanced states, your body can do its own thing and recover faster. Your immune system's working, your nervous system's working in order. And so it puts people, I feel like, more at a calm ease, but also kind of helps their body, you know, do its own healing from a lot of these different things. So it's not like that CBD is the cure, or anything is really the cure for anything. And I think we know that. But in any ways, it just kind of helps put your body into a relaxed parasympathetic state, which you probably know that term.
Sure.
But so where it can do its own healing on its own.
That's crazy to think about. That's like, I've been meaning to dig into the endocannabinoid system for that reason, because I'd been told that basically every cell in the body has these endocannabinoid receptors, which is nuts. I mean, and then when you really start to think about it, it's like, okay, we have all these receptors for this plant that freely grows in the ground.
Yep.
And like, for some reason we think about it different, as like, everyone thinks broccoli is good for you.
Yeah.
But then this thing is like, everyone's afraid of it. But it's like you said,
receptor sites all over your body.
Yeah, it's basically built for us.
Exactly.
And then you look at the situation like, you know, your ex-partner being on Ambien, right? It's like, we hear these people, like, they'll go into a doctor's office and a doctor will say, you have trouble sleeping. Here's this Ambien.
Yeah.
There are people that are not afraid of prescription pharmaceutical drugs, that are terrified of like CBD. But man, I've heard horror stories. I knew this girl in my 20s that would take Ambien, and like one night she literally just opened her eyes and was standing in the middle of a street in the middle of the night with her bathrobe on. She just like wandered out of her house. There was another one I heard, there was a couple, I think you can Google this, but there was a couple that woke up in the morning and there was like White Castle wrappers all over their living room. And they went to the local White Castle and pulled the security footage. They'd gotten in the car together, drove to White Castle, got a bunch of food, came home and ate it, and neither of them remembered it.
Wow.
And these are things that happen on Ambien, and then people are like, oh, my CBD is dangerous. This is but it's all just programming and brainwashing from the last 50 years.
It really is. It really is. I mean, a lot of plants have had a bad rap of like the same way with mushrooms and so many different things. And we so easily accept what the doctors tell us and what pharmaceutical companies create and all these things, and that are like crazy stuff, like pretty hardcore things that are, you know, I wouldn't say are good for use long term at all. They're not coming from natural sources. And, you know, I think that they're able to be patented and they're able to be, you know, it's a money thing. It's a power thing, to be honest.
So that's an interesting rabbit hole to go down, because I know this with psychedelics, the same thing, that like these pharmaceutical companies are trying to change the molecular structure of things like ketamine, psilocybin, like they're trying to make these synthetic versions because they really want to patent them. But I guess you can't, so you can't patent cannabis or CBD or hemp or something like that?
Well, there actually are some patents around CBD and THC. They're Epidiolex, I believe is the name of the drug. GW Pharmaceuticals patented it. It was done in Europe first, I think in the UK, and then has now been done in the United States too. It received huge uproar because in a way, that's like saying that I patent vitamin C. It comes from an orange, just like CBD comes from a plant, but I'm going to put the patent on vitamin C. So it received a lot of feedback and a lot of pushback, basically. But I think one of the reasons it got through, too, is because hemp and cannabis is such a powerful plant that works really, really well. They had enough money and enough push behind it to be able to, like, well, if we've told all these people that, I feel like this is part of it, too. This is like all, you know, the whole DARE program and the anti-drug campaigns and all these things. People are in prison for this drug. And then now we're going to, you know, legalize it medically. I feel like they felt like they had to do something like that to control it more.